So something else that we've been talking a lot here about at the McCourtney Institute is the kind of constant assault from Washington on the free press. Can you talk a little bit more about what role you see that the kind of assault on the press playing from where you sit?
Yeah, so one of our chapters in our book, we lay out strategies that authoritarian-inclined politicians have used around the world, and this is again drawing on lessons from other countries. And once in office, elected authoritarians often we kind of have a sports metaphor, and we say they try to capture the referees of the political system, so the court system, the neutral arbiters of rule and law. We say that they try to sideline the opposition. And we also say that one of the things they do is they go after the free press. I mean, this is a common thing, and it's often through very subtle means. It's not the shutting down of newspapers and media stations. So if one looks at what's happened in Turkey and what's happened in Hungary, I mean, although there's been some of that, kind of more extreme measures, one thing that has happened in a place like Hungary is that there's been a kind of process of licensing of media, changing of libel laws that make it easier to sue press journalists. And there's been a way in which the kind of control of the media has been politicized, and so that there's a kind of bias in the direction of the incumbents, all intended to kind of bolster up the incumbent. And in many instances, what happens is that the critical press is allowed to continue to exist, but what one sees the kind of continued existence of a critical press is treated as part of the democratic opposition, and so becomes part of the problem of polarization. And so in many ways, the press becomes part of the game of politics, where each side is kind of viewing each other as enemy. And there's been increasingly critical views, more and more widespread views, saying that the press is out to get Donald Trump, or it's not giving President Trump a fair shake. And so I think it's hard to imagine, and similarly, sort of along the same lines, actually, Republican voters are increasingly critical and skeptical of the idea that elections are actually fair and free. So if you think that these two pillars of democracy, a free press and free elections, are regarded as significant portions of the population as being not legitimate, it's hard to imagine sustaining a viable democracy in the face of that. So it's very, very worrying.
One of the things that you hear, kind of a counter argument to all of this, is that Trump is all bluster, but no action behind that, and people on the left are kind of wringing their hands over nothing. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, so we have this, and in our book we have this, what we call an authoritarian litmus test, which are really a set of indicators attacking the media, questioning the legitimacy of elections, threatening violence or condoning violence. And these are all things that candidate Trump rhetorically embraced before the election. And so people have said, well, he hasn't done much in office. I mean, this has all been talk before the election. In office, he's been largely constrained. And whether one thinks that constraint is self-imposed or comes through our system of checks and balances, one can say, well, what really do we have to worry about? And I guess I have sort of two responses to this. I think the words matter. And words matter for two reasons. Number one, when President Trump attacks the media and says it's the enemy of the people, when he falsely says that there's rampant election fraud, that this shapes public opinion. The second way that words matter, though, is that they generate fear on the side of the Democratic opposition, the Democratic Party opposition, and this contributes to polarization. And so so there's great increasing temptation for people on the Democratic side of the aisle to use increasingly extreme measures if they feel that they are under assault. This can kind of give rise to a spiraling effect, a tit-for-tat effect, where one has both sides regarding each other in increasingly, frightful terms, and there's kind of fear and loathing across the political aisle. So I think the president has a particular responsibility to hold the line, and because people look to the president and believe the president, both his allies and his opponents, and so in this sense, language matters. So I think even if there was no actual institutional damage done, immediate action done, I think words matter very serious way.